Hello, I am Connor Nielsen
And I am Spencer Nielsen.
of CS Reviews. And you know what I really love? A good movie. All right, we are back. Sorry, we're pretty much a week late on this, but we're going to be talking about two new release movies from last week. We're going to be talking about the live action rendition of the classic Disney animated feature directed by Kenneth Branaugh, Cinderella, as well as the new Liam Neeson action movie called Run All Night. Spencer, how's your week been?
It's been very, very nice. It's spring break finally. It was finals week, and that's why we did not post last week. We were very busy. I had a thing last weekend where I was at my college all day for 2 days, and it was awful. But it's spring break now, so that's all good. How about your week?
Week's been pretty good. Working a lot. All the finals are done, and it's kind of really all that's going on. Don't have a lot of plans for spring break. Just gonna be working a lot, watching some movies, I guess. Oh well. So we are going to be starting with Cinderella. So Spencer, why don't you tell us about Cinderella?
All right, well, Cinderella, as you mentioned before, is a live-action remake of sorts of the classic Disney animated feature of the same name. It is about uh, it is about a young woman named Ella who is orphaned by the deaths of her respective parents, but before her father dies, he remarries to a very wicked kind of lady, and then her daughters move in with them, and then after her father dies, uh, her new step family then treats her like a servant, ridicules her, and pretty much hates her for no good reason. But she holds on to her mother's final words of "Stay courageous and be kind," until she meets up with a prince, and magic ensues. We all know the fairy tale. It's a tale as old as time, and everyone knows the story, even if they've never seen the story. Know whether they've had the story recited to them or they've seen it acted out in any way. But yeah, Cinderella, directed by Kenneth Branagh, starring Lily James and Kate Blanchett, and a few others.
All right, Spencer, what did you think of Cinderella?
Well, I want to make this clear. I have no sentimental ties to the original Cinderella movie at all. In fact, I don't even believe I've seen it. Uh, if I have, it would have been when we were younger than we were 5 years old. So I was not really looking forward to this movie. To me, it's one of those old Disney movies. I haven't seen it. I'm sure it might be all right. I was actually shocked to find out that I think I loved almost every single second of this movie. I fell in love with this movie really early on, and it just kept me in this special place for its entire running length of an hour and 45 minutes. It is absolutely spectacular, and I give it my highest recommendations right off the bat. I wanted to make that perfectly clear. It is terrific. I loved it, and when I first saw it, I had no idea why, but now I've had time to think about it, and there's more reason why. And I want to get into that in a little bit. What did you think of Cinderella?
Kenneth Branagh's Disney live-action Cinderella is a movie that I like. It took me a little while to get into it. When the movie first started, I was thinking, okay, it's good. It's not really my thing. I can tell I'm not the target audience. But, it was fine, very well made. The production was gorgeous. The costumes were amazing. But it was Cinderella. I'm like, okay, it's just Cinderella. But as the movie kept going on, I liked it more and more. And then from the ball sequence on, I was totally with this movie. I thought it was really good. I don't like it as much as you do, but we're going to get into that a little bit. But I really like it. I know right off the bat, I really liked the casting. I thought Kate Blanchett was great as the Wicked Stepmother. I thought who plays the prince? Because I thought he was really good. Kind of reminded me of a mini Hugh Jackman, actually. Lily James, I thought was really good as Cinderella. Embodying kind of this larger than life, character. And I kind of like the way this movie didn't go for the easy way out. I mean, it could have been so easy for this movie to be like, oh, all these characters are like have been around for so long. They are basically the archetypes. That's the prince, that's Cinderella, that's the wicked stepmother. They're all just haha, evil stepmother. And then you got, I'm Prince Charming. And then you have, oh, I'm Cinderella. But they made them people. And I think it's really important for that to, we're watching this happen to actual characters. And I like that. So I think that's really kind of what ultimately made me like this movie, on top of it being absolutely beautiful. Anything else you want to talk about with this?
Oh yes, I have quite the list to go through. As you mentioned, I think the casting for this movie is absolutely brilliant. I don't think anyone was miscast here. I even liked Helena Bonham Carter as the fairy godmother. She has that little quip in the trailer where she's like, "The glass slippers, and you'll find they're very comfortable." When I saw that in the trailer, like, I don't think I'm gonna like the fairy godmother at all. And it's funny because she's actually they kind of do this funny little thing with her where she's kind of a fashionista. She has this little kind of spunky personality. I have never seen the original, so I have nothing to compare it to, which I think makes my my screening of this a lot more objective and just seeing it for what it is, but at the same time it's a classic. So anyways, I really like this interpretation of the fairy godmother. I thought she was funny. I thought Helen Bonham Carter risked being annoying but wasn't. It was actually kind of endearing. Lily James as Cinderella, I thought was a great choice. She's all Gretchen down. She's kind, she's beautiful, she has this youth and this vibrance. Whenever she smiles, it just makes the frames, which are already gorgeous, even more beautiful. I thought she was kind of the perfect choice for Cinderella. I also want to say that I loved the prince in this movie. Because as you mentioned, yeah, he reminds me of a younger Hugh Jackman. What I like about this movie is that it takes the archetypes, as you were saying, it takes these archetypes and it explores them as if they were by the standards of a modern screenwriting context. These are the same characters. They're not humanized. They're just explored and expanded upon. And as I come to find out, I wanted to talk about Cate Blanchett's role. So this is actually, I'm going to issue a small spoiler warning for Cinderella here. When I do this, I'm going to be done. So here we go. Cate Blanchett's character I actually really liked because, as I come to find out, in the original, the stepmother poisons the father, and that's why he dies. In this one, Cinderella's father dies while he's away on a business trip in France, and Cate Blanchett is torn up about this, and mainly from the financial aspect of it. And I thought what was actually kind of brilliant with the character is that the stepmother in this interpretation or this whatever this telling of the story, she's a victim. She is she tried love once and it failed. Or it didn't fail, but her love died. And then she married again for financial reasons, and she wasn't happy. She felt that she was constantly being compared to the original wife, and which was played by Haley Atwell, who's just a delight in this movie for the small time she's in it. But I think it gives kind of this it gives her kind of a real reason why Cate Blanchett's she has the name. Her name's Lady something. I don't know why. The stepmother. It gives her a reason why she kind of hates on Cinderella, and it's because I inferred that the wicked stepmother was a lot like Cinderella when she was younger, but then gave up on being kind, gave up on courage, and because of that, she ended up being unhappy. And she's trying to prove that she's trying to justify to herself on why she gave up, and is therefore trying to break Cinderella to prove that this young lady isn't stronger than she was. And I felt that was actually very powerful. And there's nothing in the writing that says this, but I felt just because of the performance and the relationship and the chemistry of all the characters, especially these two, being Cinderella and the stepmother, was so good, and it conveyed a lot. And at the end, when the stepmother gives she says her motivation, "Why are you so cruel?" And she's like, "'Cause you're good and you're kind and you're innocent." I feel right there, she wasn't just explaining herself. I felt that right there she was trying to find some kind of excuse to victimize Cinderella, but she just couldn't find it, and all that could come out was just some kind of justification that wasn't valid. So that's what I thought. Spoiler section over. And also, can we talk about, you and me, can we geek about just how beautiful this production is?
Yeah, I wanted to say Kenneth Branagh is really reaching into his Hamlet bag of tricks here. When that ball sequence happened, I was having a bit of like deja vu for his Hamlet. Just a lot of the shots look very similar. Where that one had a lot of blacks and whites, this one just has a lot of golds and a lot of just colors, and it's just gorgeous. It doesn't look like an ugly, hideous hodgepodge of colors. It looks like just this beautiful blend of everything. And the costumes, when they turned the lizards into the coachmen, like you see the suits and they have like scaled green suits and like the hats, and it's so well detailed. I was really taken aback by how much I was impressed with these how much I was impressed with the costumes. And then I mean you have all across the board, the production, like the sets look extravagant, and I think it largely has to do with Kenneth Branagh, because I feel like his directorial style, because he's not really one of those people when you look at a Kenneth Branagh movie you think, oh, that's directed by Kenneth Branagh, uh, but he's a bit underrated. I think I didn't really care much for his Thor. But one thing you can't deny is he can direct actors like no one's business. I think it largely has to do with him being an actor himself. And I think he really gets excellent performances out of everyone. And his style, I think, is really interesting too, how he has this very graceful, elegant, elevated style. And I think that's ultimately like why I think a lot of this worked. He was kind of the linchpin that kept everything together. And it's not like, you know, the director's the star of the show, like a lot of our tours are. But yeah, I really liked his approach to this, where he was really making the story the show. I mean, the star of the show, and it's a good story. So I like how it's not. People always say, "Oh, Cinderella, she just gets everything she wants," but no, it's not. It's not a story about just fall in love with a man and you get everything you want. No, you work hard, and you put up with people's crap and you work hard, then you will be rewarded for your kindness and everything. That's what it's about. So
And Cinderella goes through some crap. Um, yeah, another thing, especially the ball scene, but I feel that I think it's so extravagant. It reminded me of the old Hollywood epics, like Gone with the Wind or something, where everything just looks so glamorous, and there's real sets. There is a lot of computer generated elements during the magical sequences, or kind of some action oriented exciting moments. But like the castle, that's real sets. Those are real costumes. They are absolutely beautiful. And I feel like the cinematography of this movie is absolutely brilliant. It feels Kubrickian in a sense, in the way that everything feels painted. Everything, like you could take a frame of this and you could make it a poster in some ways. But at the same time, it is.
Scene where they're in the secret garden.
Oh yeah, where they're in the secret garden and he's pushing on the swing. It was phenomenal. The scenes, the dancing scene took my breath away. It was elating. It was beautiful, and so it has a Kubrickian flair to it, but it is undeniably Branagh's style and his touch. I can't praise the look of this movie, and this I feel. I also wanted to get into. It is a refreshingly traditional take on it. It isn't a dark fairy tale. It isn't the crappy Tim Burton Alice in Wonderland movie.
Oh my God!
Yeah, I know you are a huge fan of that movie.
I hate that movie.
Yeah. So I just want to say that it's traditional and it goes through, but it just takes the original, like the cartoon element, from what I know, it's the tale I'm aware of, and just expands upon it. I thought the relationship between the prince and the king, there's actually a character dynamic there, and it's really good. It even had me welling up at the when that kind of comes to a head. You want to touch up on that?
That subplot, it runs the risk of being brushed under the rug, but it's so understated and elegant. And when that whole thing like paid off, these are obviously two people that are trying to reconnect, even though they've disagreed in the past. And it's a nice like juxtaposition of like it's like their relationship was kind of broken. They're trying to get back together, and you see Cinderella. She's trying to connect with her stepmother because they're really all each other have now, and well, I mean, the wicked stepmother's all Cinderella really has now, and the wicked stepmother is just like no, and there's a nice like parallel there. And when that whole like subplot between the king and the prince really resolved, I was like, I was like, wow, that was very well handled, both from a screenwriting and directorial stuff and acting. Like everything was perfect, and it really like hit me there. I was like, wow, that's good.
Yeah, and I thought that it is brief and it risks being just sort of too brief, but it's very classily handled. It's understated and it just works. Uh, but if I had to get into any sort of complaints about the movie, I would say that I think it's too traditional in the sense that I think the ending lacked any sort of creative ambition. I, I guess this is kind of a spoiler alert, but not really. It has a happy ending, but instead of the glass shoe fits uh, as it always does, and then they live happily ever after. But unfortunately, I think that towards the end they say certain lines. The things that they're saying, they kind of know they know it's going to happen, and then he slides on the slipper, on the glass slipper, and I think it just should have ended right there. I think if it just cut to black, that would have been the perfect ending. But no, because it's trying to be very traditional, they say, and then they got married, and then they became the king and queen, and then they lived happily ever after. So I just think that if it had a
Well,
little bit more of a ambitious, creatively speaking, ending, it could have benefited it. Just been a nice touch.
I know for me, like if we go into things that like complaints, um, it wasn't my cup of tea for a good while. I mean, I was like, okay, it's fine. It didn't really do much for me, but I thought it was good. I thought that like the whole be kind and have courage, like I get that's the moral of the story, but I felt like it was like I kind of got the gist of it. Pardon me. Uh, Pretty early on, they kept coming back to it, and I got why they kept coming back to it. But I mean, at the same time, I got it. And I mean, I don't really have too much like wrong to say about it. I just it wasn't. We didn't have a similar experience in the sense that I wasn't blown away by this movie.
Yeah, I know for me, this was the first time in a long time where I was sitting like, I want to see what happens next. I want to see what happens next. I know what's going to happen next, but I want to see how they do this. And then it just reminded me like, I wait, I can just sit back and enjoy it. And I haven't had that experience since Whiplash. And that I think is the best movie of last year. This is also the very first movie that I actually was getting kind of emotional at just how beautifully framed the movie was since Interstellar, which was the first time that happened to me. But yeah, I absolutely loved it. What would you give Cinderella, and what are your final thoughts?
Um, I'm giving Cinderella a 7.5 out of 10. I know after we've just, I mean, your love for this movie, I like positive discussion, so having a really positive discussion really, uh, rubs off on me. But at the same time, like the stuff that really works in here really, really works. But at the same time, it's not like I don't think it's great. I think there are great elements to it, but I like it. It's not a particularly challenging movie. I think some of the things that I mean, kids will like it. It's really good for kids, and I think a lot of the character stuff is really good. I really like the acting. I really like the direction. I really like the production. Uh, but as a whole, I don't. I think it's good. Not as great as it really could have been, but oh yeah, I'll give it a 7.5. I liked it. It was better than I thought it would be.
Yeah,
And
I I like that we're able to discuss this. Like we're able to discuss a movie like this instead of, well, I hated Black Hat more than you.
Ugh.
But yeah, I'd give this movie a 9.5 out of 10. I was blown away by it. I would say that this,
Wow.
yeah, I'd say that this movie is a lady. It's elegant, it's patient, and absolutely beautiful. That's my box quote for it. Come on, use that, Disney. But yeah, so that's Cinderella. I'd say check it out. And Connor, tell us about Run All Night because I didn't see it.
Run All Night is the latest Liam Neeson action movie in which Liam Neeson plays a surprisingly almost entirely unlikable character. What happens is he is an ex-hitman enforcer for Ed Harris, who is now a legitimate businessman, but how he got to that prominence was through, illegitimate means. So, ends justify the means sort of thing. And then what happens is his son, played by Joel Kinnaman, absolutely has nothing to do wants nothing to do with him. He's got his own life and everything's going fine. But through a series of unfortunate events, uh, Ed Harris's son is killed by Liam Neeson when Ed Harris's son was trying to kill Liam Neeson's son. And now what happens is Ed Harris is coming down on Liam Neeson and his son with everything he's got, and unfortunately, he owns most of New York. So that's really the premise of the movie. And surprisingly, I was really impressed with this movie. It's got a very major flaw that I think is a bit frustrating when I finally caught on to what was missing from the movie. I was like, no, come on. And that being, it needed a better director. Uh, well, you see, let's get off to stuff that I really like about this. Liam Neeson, his character is very obviously not supposed to be likable, and he's an anti-hero. He knows he's not a good guy. He's not a good guy, but what he's doing is he has a bit of a noble cause now, and he's just hanging on to that noble cause, to protect his son. And it's endearing, and it's, not anything new, but it's good, and it was kind of interesting seeing Liam Neeson in this, as he's always kind of been, he's the hero. He's got a flaw here or there, but he's the hero. This one, he's not the hero. He doesn't have any friends anymore, and when you finally get to kind of learn a little bit about this guy's history, you really think this guy's really kind of a dirtbag. And I really liked how this movie was scripted, surprisingly enough, which, it's an action movie with Liam Neeson. The script's not the best part of it. But surprisingly, I thought the script was the best part of this movie. I'd be interested to see where the screenwriter goes from here. I haven't looked at anything he's done, which I probably should have. But I was very impressed. I think that it's a movie that obviously has a lot to owe to the French Connection, not particularly in its story, but in its inspiration. A very unlikable main character who has to go take out even less likable characters, but it's noble. It's a noble cause, but you kind of latch onto him, and it's kind of got this frantic chase element to it. So there's even a sequence where Liam Neeson wears a Santa suit. So I mean, right there you can sort of see a bit of an homage. I caught on to that, and the action I thought was really nicely woven into the script. It's not just let's have an action sequence just to have an action sequence. And I watched this after watching Insurgent, which had lots of action scenes just to have action scenes. But with this one, it was like when the rising action got to the boiling point, bam, an action scene, and then it came back down, and then they had to reel from it, and they had to talk about it. And I was really interested in these characters and their dilemmas. And then the action, tension would build back up, and then boom, another action scene. The issue is the action isn't that entertaining or gripping or anything. It's just very generic action, and that's why this movie needed a better director. I feel like if the director came in and was able to kind of like add an extra layer of grease and grime to the visual nature and able to make the action scenes more exciting, it would have been like solid, great entertainment, and like great entertainment. The issue though is I feel like the director didn't get the script, or at least he had different visions for this script. The script is obviously trying to make a pulp, and not like an homage or a tribute or a spoof on a pulp, but make an honest to God pulp. Like a pulp novel on the screen. You got the unlikable main character. You got a bit of like noir element in like some of like the character elements, and these characters got histories, but got this one chance to make things right for my son, and it was entertaining. I was having a good time. It just needed a better director. Um, but I really liked Ed Harris. I liked his character. Joel Kinnaman, his character, I liked him. Wasn't particularly like memorable, great characters. And like ultimately, for like a lot of this movie, it's like none of it's memorable or like particularly great. But I'm kind of glad I saw it. I was having a good time in the theater, and I feel there's a scene like to get into perspective like how much I was actually kind of interested in this. Vincent D'Onofrio is in this thing, and like in this movie, he plays like a cop, one of the only clean cops. And when you finally kind of got around to what he was all about, like when they first showed him up, I'm like, okay, we got the obligatory cop character, clean cop who just does, he's got it out for the main, guy. But it wasn't like that. Like of course, he had it that way, but there was a little extra layer there where he wanted to know he wanted to know all the names of the people that Liam Neeson had killed. And by the time that character arc reached its climax, it was effective. It was well written, and there's a sequence like kind of when I thought like the movie was going to be over. I'm like, okay, this is the end of the movie. But at the beginning of the movie, it kind of shows you the end, and then it goes back to the beginning, and you go finally get back to the end where the movie began, which is a framing device I don't really care much for. But when we got to the ending, I'm like, okay, we're not at the ending that the beginning of the movie told us that we were. I'm like, oh man, are we just gonna stretch it to have another action scene? And almost immediately after that scene, where I feel it maybe like the central thread ended, it immediately started justifying why it was still going on. There's these loose character threads that needed to be resolved, and they resolved them. And there's like this 20-ish minute epilogue, not really a fourth act, but an epilogue that I was really like impressed at how well handled it was from a screenwriting standpoint. The action was in that last sequence I thought was the best. And then Common shows up as a hitman. He was a lot of fun. All in all, I guess what I'm saying is I liked this movie probably more than it was good, but I was pleasantly surprised by it. So I thought it was significantly better than Taken 3. And the director and Liam Neeson previously collaborated on what was that movie called on the plane?
Non-stop.
Non-stop. That's right. Which was a great premise, but got ridiculous. And that movie was just okay. It had a great premise and decent stylistic direction, but it got carried away. And I honestly, by the time that movie was over, I was ready for it to be done. But I like with this one, the premise is just okay. You got the unlikable, you got the character with the bad past. He's got to make things right with his son. The running away from everyone. Okay, it's not exactly a great premise, but it made up for that with actually really well written, like a well written script. And Nick Nolte shows up for a cameo, which was a pleasant surprise. So yeah, I liked Run All Night. I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. It's a nice like alternate that week for Cinderella, because Cinderella, while a better movie, is very much going for the female demographic, and then you have Run All Night that's going for the male demographic, and I think it's a very good companion piece, if you will. So I'm gonna give Run All Night a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, 7 out of 10 and better than Taken 3. That's probably not too hard.
No, it's not.
All right. So, any final thoughts on Run All Night? I kind of wanted to see this in the kind of a odd kind of way. I wasn't dying to see it. I'm sad that I missed out on it, but I'm glad to hear that it was entertaining.
Yeah, I liked it. I watched it with a coworker, and she thought it was pretty good too. She almost cried because she said she's a big softie, but I liked it. Yeah. Tomorrow we are going to be doing the movies from this past weekend. We are going to be talking, which we've both already seen. Well, we've already seen these two movies. we might see the third one. Anyway, we're seeing the Divergent series Insurgent, um,
Yep.
which is a sequel to Divergent, which I was pleasantly surprised by Divergent, and I didn't really want to see a sequel because I thought the external plot of Divergent was really bad. I really liked the internal plot stuff, which was that movie. And then having seen Insurgent, it's all external plot. So,
Anyways, we don't want to give away too much, so
anyways, yeah, we'll talk about that tomorrow. And I saw The Gunman, and you did not, with Sean Penn.
I know I was too busy working on my last day at my job.
Yeah, I ended up seeing it with our stepdad, Ron. So we'll talk about that. And the other movie that came out last week was Do You Believe? From the studio that brought us God's Not Dead, which neither of us have seen. We're probably not even gonna. We haven't seen that. We're probably not gonna see it or review it
Ever.
ever. It has Sean Astin as a doctor. Nah, well. So that's really all I have to say for today. Anything else you want to add in your excitement for tomorrow?
Um, no, I'm
Well,
good.
alrighty then. That's all we have to say for today. And until next time, I'm Connor Nielsen.
And I am Spencer Nielsen, signing off.